Okay, so the final piece in the conceptualization phase of the site design process is going to be the final deliverable is going to be the creation of this presentation board. Now this is going to be very, very similar, almost identical to what we've done in the site study phase for that final presentation board. So a lot of this should be familiar. There are going to be some added things like I've added an image in here this time. And I want to show you how you can put cropped images in and do a clip on them, a clip path, so that it allows text to flow over these things. So I want to show you that. Also, we need to recreate some of these diagrams. If you see the board, the old board that was on the wall, I had program elements pulled out separately. But that didn't make sense because they're so tiny and didn't make sense spatially on the board, so I just decided to combine them into the functional diagram. So you should already have your functional diagrams rendered at this point anyway. We're just going to go back in and kind of slide them over in Photoshop and then add in this program elements legend basically. And we'll go through that before we come back to here. But this is where we're going with this. So this board is a little smaller, so it won't take up as much wall space, but this is where you're going. So you're going to have your guiding design theory you came up with, your design intent. These are new QR codes linked, and this is asking people to vote for 1, 2, and 3. The idea behind this is that we're going to try to take these out on campus and post them up places. I believe that was one of the initiatives that that Perry wanted to see happen. So we're going to try to make that happen. So make sure these boards look good. This represents your work, represents you. But yes, the program relationship analysis, and this was done in Excel. And I'll go through how to import that, but basically you just export that as a PDF from Excel. But if I didn't show you that in that previous video, I'll show you that now. And then your 3 diagrams. And then your conceptualization conclusions. And if you want to, you can change the text. If you want to make sure things make sense and they're project appropriate. But you can certainly change color and content of these pieces. This is all just templates for you all to help make things easier. But the primary pieces that you need to see are the things that basically with the titles. You can reformat them and change descriptions again, but all these elements need to appear. Okay. So let's go and do these functional diagrams first. Jump into Photoshop. So what I have here is basically what you should have for your functional diagrams. Mine is in a PSD file format, and I can cycle through each functional diagram. Okay. But like I said, the program elements were rather small. Let's see if I can't navigate to those too. What I want to do now is just navigate to that program element approximate size PDF that I printed from AutoCAD, and everybody should have that at this point. So I'm just going to go here and open this thing up. Okay, there we go. And remember, if you get the PDF, the typical dialog box, you just make sure you select media box and make sure that the resolution is 300. But you should have this PDF open, and all I really want are the lines here, so I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to hit W for magic wand and get rid of the white. Alright, so I should just have lines now. Cool. And I'll bring in white just so we can see what's going on. You see this is really tiny, and that's why we're not using it, because it just didn't make sense spatially to do that on the board. So because they are so tiny, I just want to bring them over and actually add them to my conceptualization piece. So oops, I don't want the white. I want to be on a line layer. I'm using my marquee tool to go over, to drag over. I'm doing Command C, you'll do Control C. Just copy the image, that piece of it, and over to the functional diagrams. And what I want to do is just to create a new group, and I'll call it Legend. Legend 2. And I'm going to do Control V. And when I do that, I'm going to hit V for move. You'll see that it's just brought over that shape. Now there's not a lot of room on this page as it is now, but what I want to do, or what we can do, is just shift our actual diagram over on the page. So I'm going to bring this above actually the property line. So I'm just going to select everything on that layer. I'm not going to move the white background, but everything else. And I'm just going to kind of shift it over some. Okay. Just to give this legend some room to breathe on the page. So a little bit more. My computer's dragging a little bit, but okay. There we go. Alright, so that's enough room. That's cool. Let me get just a smidgen more, actually. Alright. So now, we just want to make sure that these colors are representational of what we've used. So, all you have to do for that then is on this line. I'm going to hit W for Magic Wand. I'll make sure that your contiguous is selected again. And it allows me to just select the inside of these circles. And I know this one is the social seating gathering area. So I would just go back to my F1 for my colors. Colors here. And I'm just going to make the colors 100% so I can pull the correct color. Alright, and I'm just going to use my eyedropper tool and select from, what is this, social seating gathering, it's that color. So we're going to create another layer and call it color. And we're just going to drop that in. Okay. And I'm going to keep on going. So back to the line again. And that eyedropper tool back. And that is a private seating area. So I believe that's going to be the purple. Must be. Color again. Shift F5. Just dropping these colors in. Back to this. That. I'll do this one more time just to demonstrate that my bus area is here. And I'm going to color. Drop that in. There you go. Alright, so you would just fill all these bubbles in. Now, remember all of our program elements we weren't able to create an approximate size for, right? There were some unknowns. So you would just list the other unknowns, and actually you should have your text field you had before from your previous legend that we've color coded this with. You can just use that, and let me show you one that's I've completed here. You can just use those and just change their colors like we did. Actually keep the colors the same, they should be the same. So just eliminate the ones that you're visualizing here from this list and just put this below. I've also added a few other text fields, program elements known and the minimum maximum program elements unknown. You can actually do this in CAD if you want to keep it cleaner, just to make it easier when you get into this phase. But also what I ended up doing was actually creating text fields for that PDF, so that, because you can't really edit the other ones when you're here, you can't really change those because they're static images. It's an image to PDF. And they were a little bit small, I felt, so I made them a little bit bigger and just ended up deleting them and just keeping the line, or really I guess I deleted the lines too. I dropped my colors in, and then basically deleted all that line work. I just needed that scale for the graphic so we can see it. Yeah, and that's pretty much what I did to create that legend. This was shifted over, and then I went through and changed the opacity and put a drop shadow on this. Here's a drop shadow, and I just added that down here with my functionality and your functions, and did a drop shadow. You could also add a stroke to it, but I ended up taking the stroke off. I liked it better without. Actually, I'm going to increase the opacity of these some too. Okay. Alright, and then once you do that, you make sure that you change your colors back to the way you want them. Now we're at 60%. Okay, it's good, and that's basically what you would want to see. Now once you have these diagrams completed again, and all you're doing is once you shift everything over, you've only need to recreate your legend. Everything should line up perfectly with it, so that shouldn't be a problem. You just need to get your legend done. And once you have that, I would just save each image as a JPEG again. So let me demonstrate that. Everything is the way I need it. Yes. So I'm just gonna go File, Save As. I'm in Photoshop. I need to go to Conceptualization and want functional diagrams. I'm just gonna save over these other ones and replace for me. And you should have those other files somewhere, so you can just replace those as your final pieces, because they can become part of your functional diagram now instead of having it as a separate element. And you would just save each one out basically, and that would give you the base for your InDesign board here to be able just to relink these, or to drop these in and relink the ones that I have to make them yours. Okay. And you've done that before, so I'm not going to really spend too much time with that at all. The program relationship analysis. Now, I believe I did this in the previous tutorial, but I'll demonstrate this again just for this, and if you've seen it, just skip over it. But I'm going to open up Excel. I created this in Excel, and I'm just going to export this as a PDF. Now, it's a little bit different, I believe, on a PC. It's just going to be File, Save As, and you're going to select the PDF style, but you just print it as a PDF document, basically. Cancel that and just open the folder or the file that I have with that. Okay, it's dragging a little bit. Okay, there we go. Google Drive, yep, that's what I want. And Conceptualization. Alright, so here's that Excel I had. And once it pops up for me, I'm just going to select everything. And actually I was able to set my print layout, your print area, so this should just print, and you don't really need to even select it, but I'm just going to print on mine, and from that I would go print to PDF. You'll do a File, Save As PDF. Let me see if there's actually an option here to save as PDF. Okay, so you can even from here, so I can do it both ways here. So you're just going to save it as a PDF. Select your destination. In this case, it's my program relationship, and I'm not going to do it again. I've done it, and just save it, and it'll print the color as well. Right. And make sure that your font is about a 25, because you want this to be pretty large, right? Because if it's tiny and you try to scale it up, it can become pixelated. So make sure it's a decent size to begin with. All right, so that's all there is to that, and then you would just embed that into this text or to this image frame. Now, another thing that new thing that I've added here is just kind of this image, and I wanted to show you how. And actually, let me just lift her up to demonstrate this. She has a, when I select the image, and this is actually a PSD, and I found this image free online, just a girl shrugging. It was with a white background, so it was easy for me to just use my magic wand tool. And let me demonstrate that. Let's say that I got it the way it was, and well, actually, I might have that image up on Google still. Let's see. I don't. Okay, well, let me demonstrate that then. So let's say I got the image like this, and I just copied it on offline, right? So now it's the static image. I just use my magic wand tool. Yeah, with my contiguous selected because she had a white shirt on. I didn't want to capture that. And I played with my tolerances. If you have a higher tolerance, so I'd like a 25 for instance, and I use my magic wand, you see how it's selecting more of the white. So I just want to really lower my tolerance. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm just gonna hit delete, and then you're left with a with no background, with a transparent background. Now you can trace this thing with your pen tool, and that's called creating a path. You put it on paths, and you actually have a path dialog box around here somewhere in Photoshop. Paths is where, okay, there it was. Paths. Okay, yeah, so as you begin to create a path, work path is created, you would just name it and save it. And all I'm doing is tracing this thing. And you can trace outlines that InDesign will recognize when you bring it in, and I'll demonstrate that. But with something this simplistic, and especially with having a transparent background, InDesign can automatically detect these edges. So back in InDesign, I've just imported that PSD, and you can see she's transparent. And I've just brought her over top, and you can see during my arrange, for instance, let me go to arrange, send to the back. I've just arranged her in such a way that she's over top of this text box. So, and when I do that, bring to front, her hand, it ends up being on top of that dashed line and give it a cleaner look. Now, what I'm talking about with having this edge, once I click on her and I have that pad we were talking about, you have this text under your text wrap options, and you should be able to see. You don't see that, then Windows text wrap. Under your text wrap options, I can click on her and wrap around object shape. Now, contour options, same as clipping. I want to detect the edges, and you can see that it generates this kind of edge frame for her. In this case, it's kind of sloppy. It's bringing it into the dark. It's kind of, it's decent though, something that we can work with. But the benefit of using this is that if I wanted to bring text over now, so say I want to put on kind of this offset on her. Whoops, wrong way. Yeah, so that's kind of this buffer edge, right? If I wanted to bring text around now, I'm just going to drag this down. You see the text will actually wrap to the shape of the object, right? So you can do this. You see this all the time in magazines, and this is a really common practice of layout. But it allows you then to wrap your text around these images. Okay. In this case, I didn't design it in such a way that was necessary. But if you wanted to add a different image here yourself, you can definitely do that. And that would just be going into whatever browser you want to use, and person shrugging, or maybe it's a question mark, or however you wanted to depict. I wanted it to be interesting, and people to kind of get this idea, like we're asking for your opinion because we don't know, or I don't know. But whatever you think is appropriate for the board, if you want to modify it, it's your board. But there's all these images that you see. You can get all these things, and maybe it was a little girl doing it, or maybe it was this lady, or whatever image you want to use. Let's say it's this guy. It's kind of pixelated. When you that's a tip I should show you. When you're looking for images, go large and Google more. Your search tools in large. The larger images will be less likely to be pixelated. Okay, maybe it's a little kid. Whatever. Hopefully it should clear up. No, it's not very clear, is it? I'm trying to find a decent image to use. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away, but it shouldn't take you too long. That's the one I picked. That worked out. Okay. Oh, horrible. Okay, let's just use her. Okay. So I would just copy image, come into Photoshop, file new, 72, that means the resolution is not that high, but we'll make it 300. Okay, so there she goes, and then I would just do the same technique. I'm just going to delete that background, I don't need that, and select the white. In this case, it probably would be better to trace that tracer. And once you trace her, you would be able to crop this person out a little bit better, and also have a clean clipping path. But you would just trace these things out, or if you had a cleaner image that was less pixelated, like the image that I selected, you could just use your magic wand. But this is another way of doing it, is tracing it out, and eventually you would have a clip. And I'll demonstrate that. You can do this cleaner. I'm just doing this really rough just to demonstrate. How to do this. Click over here and go around. Because I'm just trying to select that white basically from her. Just everything to trim that. Alright. see, I'm pulling this thing up now. Bam. So now I would have a working path. We just name it path. Then I would save this path. Oh, I guess I don't need to save it. I guess it's there, so it's there. Okay, never mind. So I have this now, and what I would do is just click on it. I'm just command clicking and hitting delete, and it'll get rid of all that white, so it'll leave me with a transparent background, and you can just drop this person in the same way. So then I would just I would save it as an example. I'm not going to really use this one, but just as an example for this. It's a Photoshop, it's fine. In InDesign, I would just relink this image here, and I would go to the desktop, pull in that new person, and you can see she pops in, cropped, and I can do similar things with her the same way. And you'd still manipulate the image like you would anything else. And you can see my outline is there, so that's cool. That worked out for me. And you see how it is even pushing this text over here, so you can easily drop other images in anywhere into your board. But I think the other girl looks better. Alright, that works for me. And once you have it, you just save your image, and file, you can export to PDF, Adobe PDF print, save it out to your file. In this case I already have it done, but I would just save it out, and that would be it. I'll do it again. Save, replace, sure. Okay, well, I won't go through it, but then you would save it out, and that would be the end of your board. If you have any questions about anything that I've demonstrated, just shoot me an email or ask me in person.